Alrighty, today's lesson's on Chapter 19, the First World War. So the main idea, as World War I intensified, the United States was forced to abandon its neutrality. And why does this matter now? The United States remains involved in European and world affairs. Alright, the causes of World War I. Although many Americans wanted to stay out of the war, several factors made American neutrality difficult to maintain. Historians generally cite four long-term causes of the First World War, which were nationalism, imperialism, militarism, and the formation of a system of alliances. Throughout the 19th century, politics in the Western world were deeply influenced by the concept of nationalism. And this is a devotion to the interests and culture of one's nation. And often nationalism leads to competition among other nations. And in this atmosphere, many feared Germany's growing power in Europe. Also, various ethnic groups resented domination by others and longed for nations to become independent. So Germany's going to dominate Europe in 1914. So Russia regarded itself as the protector of Europe's Slavic people. And these are the Slavs down here too. Serbia, located in the Baltics, here's Serbia, was an independent nation, and millions of ethnic Serbs lived under the rule of Austria-Hungary. And as a result, Russia and Austria-Hungary were rivals for influence over Serbia. So Russia, Austria-Hungary were pretty much at, I guess, I wouldn't say a physical battle, but they were rivals. So they didn't like each other over Serbia. And for many centuries, European nations had been building empires, slowly extending their economic and political control over various peoples of the world. Colonies supplied European imperial powers with raw materials and provided markets for manufactured goods. So if you look at this map, this is a map of Africa, and you can see the influence in all the countries that are actually in Africa. These were not. Mostly they were not independent nations, and this was from 1885 to 1819. I mean, French owned a huge part of Africa. So did the British, all the red. It's ridiculous. And the Portuguese owned a lot too, orange. Even Germany, brown. So we talked about that in our previous chapter, Imperialism. It's when another country is expanding its territory into other regions of the world. All right, empires were expensive to build and defend. The growth of nationalism and imperialism led to an increased military spending. Now, militarism, what does this mean? The development of armed forces and their use as a tool of diplomacy. And by 1890, the strongest nation in Europe, the European continent, was Germany, which had set up an army reserve system that drafted and trained young men. So an army reserve is troops that would train once a month, but they would live in the civilian sector, so they would live home. But when they got the call to duty, they would be called up, and they'd be able to have a huge force, more than normal. All right, so let's see if we answer any of our questions. What are the long-term causes of the U.S. entering World War I? Let's see, nationalism. Imperialism, militarism, formation of a system of alliances. All the above. Number one is all the above. E. Which vocabulary word means a devotion to the interest and culture of one's nation? Psh, nationalism. B. And which vocabulary word means the development of armed forces and their use as a tool of diplomacy? Militarism. Militarism. That's number three. B. Number three is B. Okay, and what countries belong to the Triple Entre? We did not get to that yet. All right, so number one is E, number two is A, and number three is B. All right, moving on. By 1907, there were two major defense alliances in Europe. The Triple... I can't even say the Triple Entre. I guess that would be the Entre. The Triple Entre. Let's see if that's spelled the same way. Yes. And the Triple Alliance. Let's see. Yeah, so the Triple Entre consisted of France, Britain, Russia, and later, this was going to be known as the Allies later. And the Triple Alliance consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy, and the Ottoman Empire. And this is going to be known as the Central Powers. So they changed their name. All right, so the Triple Alliance was going to be Germany, Austria-Hungary, Italy, and the Ottoman Empire. And the Triple Entre, which is going to be known as the Allies, is going to be France, Britain, and Russia. So 4 is B, 5 is A. All right, so as it turned out, a spark set off the major conflict. And that spark flared in the Balkan Peninsula, which was known as the power keg of Europe. Right here. In addition to the ethnic rivalries among the Baltic peoples, Europe's leading powers had interests there. Russia wanted access to the Mediterranean Sea, which is here, so Russia wanted access to this part. And Germany wanted a rail link to the Ottoman Empire, so Germany is going to want a railroad to come through this area. And Austria-Hungary, which had taken control of Bosnia in 1878, accused Serbia of ruling over Bosnia. Serbia, and where's Bosnia? I think Bosnia is underneath of it. So this area was it was ready to explode. I mean, there was tensions growing all by the surrounding countries, so something was bound to happen. And in June 1914, Archduke Ferdinand, which is this guy with the sweet mustache, he was heir to the Austrian throne, this is Austria. And he was visiting Bosnia, and this was the capital in Sarajevo. So let's find Sarajevo. Here's Sarajevo. So this guy is the heir. So he's next in line to the Austrian throne, and he was visiting down here in Sarajevo. Let's see, where was it? Okay. And as the royal entourage drove through the city, a Serbian nationalist, Gavrilo Principal, stepped from the crowd and shot Archduke Ferdinand and his wife Sophie. And this assassin was a member of the Black Hand, an organization promoting Serbian nationalism. So this guy was from here, and they were against Austria-Hungary, if you were. And the assassinations touched off diplomatic crises after that. So on July 28th, Austria-Hungary declared war against Serbia. So that's pretty quick. I mean, this happened in June. The next month, Austria is going to declare war. Austria is going to declare war on Serbia. And like I said, Archduke Ferdinand was heir, so he was going to be the next emperor or king of Austria. And he went to go visit Sarajevo, but some dude from Serbia, who was in this crazy little cult slash group called the Black Hand, went there and shot him and his wife as they were just driving through the town or the city. All right, so the alliance system pulled one nation after another into the conflict, and on August 1st, Germany, obligated by a treaty to support Austria-Hungary, so Germany needs to support Austria-Hungary, declared war on Russia. And on August 3rd, Germany declared war on Russia's ally, France. So Germany, they're going to declare war on these guys, then they're going to declare war on these guys because you have a system. The blue is the allies, like we said. The blue is going to be the ally system. And let's see, the allies and the central powers is going to be the red. So you're going to have the allies are going to be the blue, and these guys are all in alliance with each other. And then you have all the guys in red, which are the central powers, and they're going to have treaties. So if one country goes to war, the other country's got to go to war. And so after Germany invaded Belgium, Britain, Britain declared war on Germany and Austria-Hungary. So let's see where Belgium is. All right, so when Germany invaded Belgium, so Great Britain, which is the United Kingdom, is going to declare war on Germany. So like I said, you're going to have the system of alliances, and you're going to have one country going to war for another country. All right, so on August 3rd, 1914, Germany invaded Belgium following a strategy known as the Schlieffen Plan. And this plan called for a holding action against Russia, combined with a quick drive through Belgium to Paris. After France had fallen, the two German armies would defeat Russia. So Germany planned on going through Belgium and flanking Paris, like coming from behind it, and the French army, if you will. So that's going to be known as the Schlieffen Plan. And as German troops swept across Belgium, thousands of civilians fled in terror. Unable to save Belgium, the Allies retreated into the Marne River, in France, where they halted the German advance in September 1914. So this is where the river is going to be, right here. And this is where they're going to stop the Germans. They halted the German advance. So the Germans wanted to keep going, but this is where we're not going to stop them, but this is where the battle's going to begin. All right, after struggling to outflank each other's armies, both sides dug in for a long siege. So this is going to be known as the trench system. In the spring of 1915, two parallel system of deep, rat-infested trenches crossed France. From the Belgian coast to the Swiss Alps, German soldiers occupied one set of trenches, and the Allied soldiers controlled the other side. There were three main kinds of trenches: the front line, the support, and the reserve. So let's see. There's no man's land. So this is the front line. B is going to be the support trench, and C is going to be the reserve. And D is going to be the enemy trench. And then in this area in between all that is going to be known as no man's land, which was anywhere between 25 yards to a mile wide. You're not going to want to go here. There's going to be a bunch of barbed wire, there's going to be mines, and a bunch of dead people. So, I mean, periodically you would have people that would like just get up and run and try to charge the other trench. into no man's land, but then um, these soldiers are going to be mowed down by the opposing forces with machine gun fire. So I mean, it's called no man's land for a reason. You don't want to go there because you're going to die. And the scale of slaughter was horrific in this war. During the First Battle of Somme, which began on July 1st, 1916, and lasted until mid-November, the British suffered 60,000 casualties. I mean, 60,000 people got hurt on the first day alone. That's ridiculous. And the final casualties totaled to about 1.2 million, and only about 7 miles of ground changed hands in this entire battle. In this bloody trench warfare, in which armies fought for mere yards of ground, continued for over 3 years. And in 1914, most Americans saw no reason to join a struggling war that was 3,000 miles away. So most Americans didn't really support going over to Europe and fighting for the Europeans. And the war didn't threaten American lives or their own property, so they didn't really see any reason to get involved. But millions of naturalized U.S. citizens followed the war closely because it still had ties. They still had ties from their previous nations where they came from. And on the other hand, many Americans felt close to Britain because of a common ancestry and language, as well as a similar democratic institution and legal systems. And more importantly, America's economic ties were with the Allies, so like Great Britain and France. They were way stronger than its enemies, the Central Powers, Germany and Austria, Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. So although a majority of Americans favored victory for the Allies rather than the Central Powers, they didn't want to join the Allies' fight. But in 1917, however, America had mobilized for war against the Central Powers for two reasons. It ensured Allied repayment of debts to the United States, and it prevented Germany to prevent Germany from threatening U.S. shipping, because the Germans are going to have a bunch of submarines, and it's going to mess up our trade system with our ships. Can't be getting shot by submarines. All right, as fighting on land continued, Britain began to make more use of its naval strength. The British expanded the definition of contraband to include food, and as a result, the American ships carrying goods for Germany refused to challenge the blockade and rarely reached the destination. Germany found it increasingly difficult to import foods and fertilizers for crops. So this is going to cause a problem for Germany. They're not going to be able to get food into their country and fertilizer to grow their own crops. So essentially, we're kind of starving them out. So they're going to start getting angry. So by 1917, an estimated 750,000 Germans starved to death, as a result of the British blockade. So the British blockade is going to come from here to stop goods from coming into Germany. And, I mean, I'm sure they set up something here. So, I mean, it's going to completely cut off Germany. But Americans have been angry with Britain's blockade, which threatened freedom of the seas. No one controls the seas. And American goods reaching Germany. So that's going to hurt our profits. And the Germans' response to the blockade soon outraged American public opinion. All right, so the Germans responded to the British blockade with a counter blockade with U-boats, and that's going to be a German submarine. And the German counter blockade stated that any British ship or Allied ship found in the waters around Britain would be sunk. And one of the worst disasters occurred on May 7th, 1915, when a U-boat sank the British liner, the Lusitania, off the southern coast of Ireland. And 1,198 persons lost in that ship. 128 of them were Americans. So on May 7th, 1915, a German submarine, is going to sink a British liner. So these guys weren't even carrying anything. Supposedly they were, but this is just going to be a passenger ship, and these are just civilians trying to get from point A to point B, and the British are going to sink this ship. I mean, it kind of looks like the Titanic. I think it was a sister ship of the Titanic, the Lusitania, actually. I mean, it sure looks like the Titanic. All right, so the Germans defended their action on the grounds that the carrier, the liner, was carrying ammunition. And 3 months later, in August 1915, a U-boat sank another British liner, the Arabic, drowning 2 Americans. And again, the United States protested. And this time, Germany agreed not to sink any more passenger ships. But on March 1916, Germany broke its promise and torpedoed an unarmed French passenger ship, the Sussex, and the Sussex sank, and about 80 passengers, including Americans, were killed and injured. So you can see America is getting pretty aggravated with the Germans at this point, because they keep sinking all these civilian ships, and they have Americans on it. And you can see this is what a German U-boat looked like. The submarine. Here's the German U-boat in World War I. This is a modern-day submarine, but pretty cramped quarters. All right, so the Germans ignored President Wilson's call for peace, and Germany leaders hoped to defeat Britain by resuming unrestricted submarine warfare. And on January 31st, the Kaiser, that's the German leader, announced that U-boats would sink all ships in Britain waters, hostile or neutral, on sight. So Wilson stated that the U.S. would wait for an actual overt acts before declaring war. But those overt acts came. The first was the Zimmermann note, and this was a telegram from the German foreign minister to the German ambassador in Mexico that was intercepted by British agents. And the telegram proposed an alliance between Mexico and Germany and promised that if war broke out with the United States, Germany would support Mexico in recovering their lost territory. So the Germans are going to want Mexico to I guess, invade America from its southern border. And second, the sinking of 4 unarmed American merchant ships with the loss of 36 lives total. This would come after the Lusitania. And third, the Russian government was overthrown by its people. So a lot of bad things are happening at this point. I believe that was in 1917. So, yep. On April 2nd, 1917, Woodrow Wilson delivered its war declaration, and Congress passed the resolution a few days later. So America's going to go to war, and we're going to help the Allies in World War I. And that ends your lesson for today. And going back to your questions, what are the long-term causes of the U.S. entering World War I? All the above. Which vocabulary word means a devotion to the interest and culture of one's nation? That's nationalism. Which vocabulary word means the development of armed forces and their use as a tool of diplomacy? That's militarism. What country belonged to the Triple Entre? That was going to be Germany, Austria, Hungary, Italy, and the Ottoman Empire, known as, what did I say? The Axis powers? The Central Powers. They changed their name in World War II. That's why I'm getting confused. That's the Central Powers. And the Allies are going to be the Triple Alliance. That's going to be France, Britain, and Russia. Number 5 is B. All right, so submit your answers, email them to me, write them in the description of the comments section below, and that's your lesson. All right, peace.